You're recording now.
Huh? Is it recording?
Yeah.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Walaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Alhamdulillah, nahmaduhu wa nasta'inuhu wa nastaghfiruh.
Speak up.
أنفسنا ومن سيئات أعمالنا. يهدي الله فلا مضل له وما يضلل فلا هادي له وأشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله. So today's going to be very, very, very short, because we got Ramadan tomorrow. We got final exams coming up. We got midterms coming up. We got projects coming up. So it's going to be very short, inshallah. Essentially, we're going to finish the Battle of Uhud, and then we're going to go next and talk about some massacres that happened afterwards. So, can anybody remind us where we left off last week? But where specifically?
When Abu Sufyan started yelling at Umar ibn Khattab,
and then started yelling back, right?
And they started yelling back.
And then they're like, may Allah curse you and all that, right?
And they prefaced that they're giving 1 year from that day.
Okay, so now we're going to go to what happened after that, right? After all this yelling. The aftermath, essentially. So, we know a lot of people are dead now. A lot of people are massacred, a lot of Muslims are gone. And the Prophet ﷺ, he had to go survey the dead. So he had to walk around and see. He actually found, when he saw Hamza, Hamza, he saw that he gazed upon his body. He saw that he was massacred, or he was like mutilated, his body. By who? By the wife of
Umayyah bin Khalaf.
Abu Sufyan.
Abu Sufyan.
You know why? What she did is, first of all, she brutally cut off his nose, removed his fingers, made it into a necklace, and there are even reports that she opened up the stomach and she ate some of his liver, which is like, I don't know why you'd even do that. Out of contempt, right? Just out of contempt. Now, the Prophet ﷺ, he was so angry that he said, if I catch them, I will show them vengeance. And he said, I'm going to do this to 30 of them because of what they did to Hamza. And then Allah revealed what? An eye for an eye, right? Allah revealed, if you retaliate, then let it be equivalent to what you have suffered. But if you patiently endure it, it is certainly best for those who are patient. And that's something that we are taught in Islam, the importance of sabr, the importance of patience, and of course, eye for an eye. We're not going to go, if someone kills one of our people, we're not going to go kill 30 of their people. We're going to be one eye for one eye. So this is one concept we want to remember throughout this series, and this episode specifically is sabr, patience. Nevertheless, the Muslims began to bury the dead, and then the Prophet ordered that those who memorize the most Quran get buried first. So this shows, Allah showing basically that not only are these people who memorize the Quran honored in the afterlife, they're also honored in this life, right? It carries in this life and the next. And Allah even states, it will debase some and elevate others. And then of course the Prophet he then gave an encouraging reminder to the believers where he said, I will testify for every one of them on the day of judgment. And the Prophet made dua for the martyrs, those who died, which led to some people, there's some misinterpretations around this, but essentially he praised Allah and reminded the believers that everything happens by the will of Allah, including the death of these martyrs, and that inshallah on the day of judgment, inshallah he asked for security on the day of judgment and asked Allah to allow everyone among them to die in the state of Iman. So at the end of this battle, we kind of know from last week, we know 70 people died, right? 70 Muslims died from our side, and most of them are from the Ansar. Do you know what the Ansar were? Any of you? The two people that were not praying?
The people living in Medina.
People living in Medina
who accepted the Muhajirun.
They took in the Muhajirun. So 70 of these people who did not really, people on the outside would say they don't have like a horse in this race. But they are people from Medina who died. Why? For the sake of Islam. So it's no longer Quraysh versus the people who left Mecca. No, this is it's Islam versus non-Muslims. So like I said, 70 Muslims died. Only 22 of the Quraysh were killed. And there were no prisoners of war except for one man, named Abu Asl Jumah. And he was actually executed on the battlefield. So we're going to go into like a little sub-story. Why was this one person who was a prisoner of war taken and killed on the battlefield? What did he do? What was so treacherous that made him get killed on the battlefield? And it's actually crazy. In the Battle of Badr, he was captured, and his ransom was 4,000 dirhams. And he begged the Prophet ﷺ to release him. He said, I have no sons. I have no means of paying the ransom. Please release me. And the Prophet ﷺ, he's very generous, he's very kind. So of course he let him go. And then he said, the only condition is, you never fight the Muslims again. And he agreed. Khalas, you can release me. I'm not going to fight the Muslims again. I'll be out. And of course, everyone thinks, khalas, it's good. He's not going to fight the Muslims again, and he gets what he wants, he's free. What happened for the next battle? Battle of Uhud? He fought the Muslims again. He was persuaded. Why was he persuaded? Money, right? they're like, you'll get riches from the victory. You'll get even if we get defeated, you'll get riches, and if we win, you'll get even more. You'll get war booty. You'll get all these like treasures from the war. And if you die, Abu Sufyan said to him, if you die, your daughters will be sponsored and they'll be treated as his own. So he had a lot of incentive to join him. So he went back on his word. He went and fought, and Allah embarrassed him. This guy was the only one from the Quraysh who was captured as a prisoner of war, and he was killed on the spot. He was killed at the battlefield. So he was the only person out of how many? 3,000. So imagine 3,000 people. You're the only guy that gets like held behind and as a prisoner of war. So Allah certainly humiliated him. So good, alhamdulillah. Another thing that happened after the battle is the Prophet ﷺ went and visited the families of the dead, especially those who did not have extended family. So there's many cases of this happening, and there's actually one thing I'll highlight. The Prophet ﷺ, he was loved by everyone, all the Muslims. In some cases, in many cases, more than their own family. So I'll give an example. There was a female companion, her entire family had been martyred. But she heard also that the Prophet had died, because there was like a fake rumor back then that he had also passed away. So then she heard that her father died. Then she said, what? And how is Rasulullah? And then same thing, when her brother died, okay, he died, but how is the Prophet? And finally, when she saw the Prophet alive, she said in relief, may my father and my mother be sacrificed for you, Ya Rasulullah. Any calamity after you is bearable. So we see that like the love for the Prophet ﷺ is even much greater than the love of a husband or a father or a brother or all these things. Because again, we are tied in Islam to worship Allah, and His messenger has to be listened to, right? La ilaha illallah Muhammad Rasulullah. He is the messenger of Allah, and the message is the message that we follow. So what are some silver linings here? Well, you think that we lost the battle, right? Because a lot of us got killed, and the archers did not listen, and what happened basically was what was mentioned in the last few lectures, right? But did we really lose? Because what was the goal of this battle? Our goal as Muslims were to defend defend Medina. And our goal is to defend Medina. What was their goal? To kill us and to get rid of Medina and to kill the Prophet. And when you look at this, the silver lining is they failed in their goal when it came to killing the Prophet and basically coming into Medina and taking it over. And or at least just killing the Prophet. That was a big thing. They hated Islam and they hated us. They failed. Okay? And the other silver lining is Medina still belongs to the Muslims. It still belongs to us. So that's also another victory. That's another silver lining to take heed of. And actually, after Uhud, the Prophet ﷺ had a dream and narrated it to the companions. He said, I saw a dream where I struck with my sword, but my sword broke. And this is what afflicted the Muslims of Uhud, at Uhud. Then I hit it again, and it reformed as strong as it ever was. And this was the victory Allah gave to the Muslims and the coming together of the believers. So this mentality of the Muslims at Badr was like worlds apart from the mentality of the Muslims at Uhud, right? And there's consequences that were made clear at this in this juncture, right? We have the overarching symbolisms of the consequences twofold, right? First of all, we have the people who compromise the hereafter for this life. They end up getting neither, right? And this is something that we saw last week. We had the hypocrites, what happened to them. And second, disobeying Allah and His messengers never yields success. We have that with the archers. They disobeyed the Prophet, and they saw that they got down too soon and they should have listened to him. So these are some silver linings and lessons to learn from the battle. Now moving on to after this battle, the Prophet married somebody. Does anybody know who that is? Salama, right? Salama was what? She had a husband. He passed away. His name was Abu Salama, and he passed away about 6 months after the battle from some wounds, basically. And something little fun fact about Salama and her husband: they actually emigrated to Abyssinia, and then they emigrated again to Medina. So they were known as the people of two emigrations, basically. Anyways, her husband passed away. She had kids, and because she had noble lineage, like all the culture, right? They desired like a noble lineage in beauty and wealth and all these things. Many people went to her, right? Umar al-Faruq, he went to her. Abu Bakr as-Siddiq went to her, and many other companions went to her proposing, and she rejected all of them because she's like, Abu Salama is like, so great. I don't think I can get anyone better than him. And then of course the Prophet ﷺ proposed, and he indeed is like the Prophet ﷺ, right? So of course she said yes in the rarest of events. First she did not immediately accept, but eventually she said yes. And of course she said, look, I have 3 issues. I'll accept, but I have 3 issues. Number one is, these are actually very famous stories, so maybe you've heard this before. 3 issues. Number one, I am a jealous woman. Right? Number 2 is, I am no longer young. And number 3 is, I have children. Right? So the Prophet ﷺ responded very beautifully. He said, as for your jealousy, I'll make dua to Allah to remove it for you. Right? I'll make dua to Allah, the Prophet will make dua to remove the jealousy from her. As for your age, I am suffering from the same ailment. I have the same thing, right? I also have older age. And then for the third one, as for your family, because she's saying she has kids, they will also be my family. So look how beautiful this response is. Like, your family will be my family. Your age, I also have age, and I'll make dua for Allah to remove your jealousy. Because jealousy is not a real issue here, right? The issue is not that she's jealous and she doesn't feel bad because he has other wives. No, the issue here is that jealousy, to begin with, is a bad thing to have in your system. It's something that is like wrong to have. It's something that's not healthy, especially as a Muslim, to have. So of course he said, I'll make dua that Allah will remove your jealousy. So he really gave the best possible like rebuttals, right? So she accepted. They ended up getting married. And another thing to say is Abu Salama actually, he once narrated to Salama that the Prophet ﷺ said, whenever a person is afflicted with a calamity and makes the following dua, Allah will replace it with something better. So if you have a calamity and you say this dua, Allah will give you something better than the calamity, right? And what is the dua? It's essentially, well, actually it's not, I don't want to, yeah, it's not, just to be careful, I'm not going to say it here because this may not be, yeah. But essentially it's, Allah recompense me for my patience in my calamity and replace it with that which is better. So yeah, when Abu Salama ended up dying, the first thing she uttered was this dua, right? There's a calamity, she did dua that she will get something better, and of course what happened is what? Allah got her someone better, got her the Prophet. So that is actually, I want to keep it short, so how much are we on time right now? It's like 5 minutes, 10 minutes?
12 minutes. 12 minutes.
This is 12 minutes?
Yeah.
Okay. There were a couple of massacres that happened after this, but I don't want to keep it too long because it's Ramadan. So inshallah, either it'll be continued next week, or I may also upload a video continuing this inshallah. Jazakumullah khairan. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.